Okay, so this is lecture 23, part 2. We just wrapped up reviewing quiz 4, which was the bottle washing problem. And now what I want to do is move out into the forum. And I got to say, for whatever reason, this seems like one of the best forums so far. I don't know what it was about it, but I got some really good responses. Some of it's a little far out there, but I also read a few where students put a lot of thought, not only kind of the nebulous metaphysical thoughts there of the whole second law of thermodynamics, but bringing it back to planet Earth and showing specific examples of repurposing, recycling, end-of-life analysis, if you will, for given artifacts. So let's just take a look at that. And then maybe what I'll do for the third chunk of the lecture is go into project updates. I know this week we were scheduled to look at electronic waste. We've already done that to some extent. If you remember a few lectures ago, we went through the embodied energy of gold. Shelley was doing her gold harvesting, so I feel like we've already touched on that to some extent. Thursday we'll dig into it a little bit deeper. But let's look at the forum here from organic waste. 9 replies. Okay. I'm going to close that door for 1 second. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so
there's a bunch of good videos made by those people.
Yeah, the video. I was in Seattle for the National Society of Professional Engineers this past summer. I was staying at a friend's apartment. Nobody was home. Didn't have my family, so I had to keep myself occupied, and it was just a good learning experience for me. They did a nice job. It was, kind of layman's terms. The videos were nice. The ethereal music in the background.
Yeah, it was a little out there. The pace was a little slow, but nonetheless, I mean, they've got a bunch of videos out there. They're good. They're good.
They're solid. I mean, they're spot on. So
you got to definitely sit down with a cup of your favorite whatever when you're watching them.
Yeah.
Because they tend to get a little long.
Yeah. Well, anyway, I found it relaxing and educational. So, Sean Warner, really mind-boggling to think of energy flowing back in time, exactly like it flows forward in time. Okay, so I'm just gonna take that and run with it. If in Newtonian physics, that's kind of exactly what happened. It's like a if you ever played billiards, pool. And if the balls are moving really fast, they'll just keep moving back and forth, and you can't tell. Like, for example, if two things bounce into each other, whether this is forward in time or backwards in time. It's just this over and over again. So if I ran this little video back and forth over and over, you can't tell which is forward and backward. The difference comes in if you're actually watching an actual game of billiards, the balls slow down. Well, why do they slow down? Because the energy is being dissipated into the table. The felt is absorbing the energy in the form of heat. If you had a really sensitive thermal camera, you could point it at the table and see a little track or a trace where the ball was, just like if you put your hand on the wall and you take it away, you can see that heat. So the energy itself isn't really flowing backwards and forwards in time. It's just that in Newtonian mechanics, where everything is just collisions, and elastic collisions, mind you, it can appear that way. And again, I think about heat a lot. I think a lot of us do. I tend to think of heat as, what's a good way of putting it? It's sort of like the icing on the cake. It's sort of like a surface that you can see or touch, but that's always expanding. and again, this is just my own little interpretation of it. There's nothing completely physical or mathematical behind it. But as the universe expands, in my mind, there's sort of more space being created, and that's, in my mind, kind of where the heat goes. As the energy from the initial Big Bang, whatever you want to call it, initial expansion of the universe, it's got to go somewhere. Where does it go? Well, it's just kind of going everywhere. It's going into the spaces in between as the universe expands. So that's how I kind of think of heat and time as being related. So as the universe heads forward in time, heat kind of just finds its way to go as the universe gets bigger. So, okay. So like Einstein and Sean Doty said, okay, that's pretty cool to have Doty being cited in the same sentence as Einstein. Mass is energy. Right, there we go. Good. Energy cannot be lost or created. It is inevitable. We will need to recycle or go through used mass and energy landfills. Interesting you say that, Sean. I don't know if you had a chance to meet one of my friends and former interns by the name of Nathan Hansen. If you get a chance. And Nathan is going to be launching his own crowdsourced funding model later this year. He's a third-generation garbage man, grew up in Montana, and like a lot of these guys, really, like literally, I mean, I've seen these guys like actually crying over the things that they put in the landfill. Just toys and dishes and valuable artifacts that could otherwise benefit humanity in some way, just heading off to a big pile on the edge of town. Like I said, my friend Nathan Hansen is starting a crowdsource funded model for his business to do exactly that. He wants to mine landfills. So he's building a robotic system because, you guys, for those of you that came to my house for zero waste work day on Saturday, it's a pain, but we're pretty good at it. Our hands and eyes and fingers are pretty snappy at sorting through materials. But what Nathan wants to do is sort of take it on a much larger scale and build a mechanism for doing exactly that, mining landfills. Okay. Now we'll be using more energy to disperse the concentration of mass to the places needed. Right? That's kind of what mining is all about. If we were to cut out steps by recycling, by not, mixing materials together, recycling is more or less keeping separate materials apart, or that's the first step of recycling, we would allow for a more efficient and inevitably inevitable energy dispersal. I'm not exactly sure what that means. And the efficiency thing too, that's a tricky one because it does take energy to squish things in the back of the garbage truck. It does take energy to drive it across town. It does take energy to drive it uphill and unload it. It also takes energy to sort. Time and energy, and that's where the efficiency question comes to play. And we would have to really, put something together sophisticated. We did a little bit of it with the aluminum in terms of economics. When is it economically viable to run your cans? How many cans do you need to break even to run your set of aluminum cans across town? Same question. So there's energy efficiency. There's also economic efficiency to consider. And maybe to some extent time efficiency. What's your time worth? And the three of them end up being intertwined there. Can't violate the laws. We can follow them to allow the best outcome for the world. Hopefully we will use what the sun temporarily provides so that life can continue until another option is presented. In the meantime, recycling could be the answer to slow down our fate. Okay, cool. And I think, not to get too crazy, the fate that these videos are talking about of, the sun enveloping the earth and all this, that's many millions of years into the future. But on the other hand, I think, unfortunately, a lot of people right now on planet Earth are suffering the fate of insufficient resources, not because there's not enough, just because it's not distributed equitably. Okay. How's that? Okay. So Brian Davis, something to the effect that every living organism, microscopic or stellar, continually feeds upon one form of energy whilst radiating another. That's a little bit of Schrodinger. I think we talked some Schrodinger, and that's more or less what he was talking about. And for each form of energy, there's a consumer and converter depending upon it. Nice. Even though a converting organism may be extremely inefficient at capturing stored energy, I'm always amazed by how inefficient plants are. If you take NRG Y102, I mean, photosynthesis is pretty dang good, but a lot of the light that hits a plant just bounces off, doesn't hit the leaf at the right time, et cetera, et cetera. See, also, where am I? Lost my place. Capturing. Oh, good question. Is it efficiency or using what they need? Well,
actually, when I wrote it, I was thinking while they're capturing what they need, they're actually doing it very inefficiently. I mean, they're certainly getting what they need, but there's a lot of waste product.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's a great question. Well, like any system, there are a lot of intricacies that go into photosynthesis, and in any process, there's always going to be some bottleneck. And so it could be if the plant is not sufficiently watered, that's probably going to hold up some little molecular cycle that does not allow photosynthesis to happen as quickly as it otherwise would. So, which brings me back to another kind of interesting thing. There's a friend of mine, he was at MIT with me for a while, and then he moved on to Harvard mathematics by the name of Snorre Lorgen, and his hypothesis was that we're all doing the best we can all the time. And it could be that that's what the plant's doing. So it's using exactly as much as it can, and that's how well it's doing, and maybe it's, from some perspective, it's 100% efficient. I don't know. Good question. I mean, it kind of becomes a philosophical question at some point. Okay. Other organisms will continue to feed off energy that is otherwise contained in waste. That's right. That energy will likewise be further degraded as it moves towards entropy. And yeah, that's one way to think of it. I'm kind of a stickler with the units. So energy itself does not get turned into entropy, but energy itself can become more entropic. That's one way to think of it. And so typically you've got your oxygen sitting over here in the air around us, and then you've got your petroleum product over here. Those two groups of molecules have a certain amount of internal energy. Once they combine, they then release it as heat. The energy isn't gone, it's turned into heat, but those initial energies of the pure substances are now more entropic. Mm-hmm. The energy's not gone, the matter's not gone, it's just more entropic energy. It's thermal rather than chemical. So yeah, just wanted to clarify that. Although it is statistically unlikely that energy will ever appear in the same form or concentration at the same time, other forms of energy can continue to concentrate across the galaxy. Are you thinking like gravitational energy with a collapsing star, or what do you mean by other forms concentrate?
New stars are forming, constant. I mean, at least as far as we know, they're still being formed.
Sure.
So we're still seeing a cycle of energy degradation, yet across the galaxy we still see energy being concentrated.
Right.
So I mean, it's a little, we mostly see the degradation. Right. But it's important to remember that there on the other end of the spectrum, there is still energy cycling together.
Yeah, I like that. Now, so just to rephrase what Brian just said, energy is concentrating. So you've got stars being formed, collapsing, and when that happens, you get fusion, and then the radiation comes out, and that's what our life depends on. If you get a chance, go take a look at some of Eric Chasen's work. I was fortunate enough to attend a couple seminars with him. He and I have been pen pals back and forth, on and off. And we've had our disagreements. I've got a couple slides in my entropy information talks where, in fact, I use the same photo from his Wikipedia page, but Chasen says, Leighton, don't start teaching entropy because nobody understands it. You're going to confuse everyone, so just give it up right now. Well, I ignored him, of course, and went on to do my best to dig into it. And really, in a lot of ways, that's somewhat the privilege that we academics have. We get to sit around and write and think about this stuff, and maybe somewhere down the road it does become useful. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of one of the nice, well, I don't want to say luxuries. It's a weird duality. It's a luxury that might ultimately become a necessity. Who knows? So just think of Newton sitting up there in his funny little ivory tower, poking his eyes and flying things through the air. If he hadn't done that, we wouldn't have had all the fantastic technologies that we do now. We got to the moon and back with those equations. We designed automobiles with those equations. We design, for better or worse, weapon systems with them too, with the ballistic equations that Newton developed. Okay, so take a look at Chasen because he studies what's called cosmic evolution and does in fact look at how solar systems, stars, etc., compete for matter with their gravity fields, and thus leading to the birth of new elements, birth of or origin of radiation. So I like where you went with that.
How do black holes play into that?
Oh, so black holes, I've studied them a little bit. I don't know a whole heck of a lot of it, but so black holes, in my understanding, are the result of so much matter becoming concentrated in such a small space that the atomic structure itself collapses. There's so much matter that and again, I might be a little bit off, but there's so much gravity that it's compressed all the nuclei together into such a dense state that things go in but they don't come out. Now, Stephen Hawking has sort of proved or shown or demonstrated or theorized otherwise that black holes do in fact radiate. And the way I understand it, a black hole we can think of as being spherical, right? So I could be over on one side, see it, kind of looks like a circle. I can be on another side, I see it, looks like, or not. I just know it's there because of the way things around it are interacting with it gravitationally. It looks like there's one actually in our galaxy. So the way Hawking came up with his black hole radiation theory, and this actually does go back to that little heat thought experiment where I was, looking at heat and time together. So at the so-called event horizon of a black hole, let's just say I'm a little chunk of empty space sitting out here. The black hole is nearby. I'm empty space. Now, there's also a thing in physics called the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, meaning that you don't really ever know exactly where something is or how fast it's going. You can never really know exactly how much energy something has. It becomes kind of strange because when we look at so for example, a photon, and think of the speed of light as being a number, a fixed number, like this is exactly how fast a photon goes. Well, the Heisenberg says, well, you can't ever really know exactly. So it's the same thing with that little chunk of empty space sitting there outside the black hole, deciding, hey, where am I going to go? Is my little empty space self going to head towards the hole, or am I far enough away that I can escape its gravity? Well, occasionally, and I don't know exactly how frequently, but occasionally empty space itself will create a particle and an antiparticle, both of which have mass. And if the if one of the two particles is on the wrong side of the event horizon, if you will, it's going to head down into the hole, and the other one's going to head away. If they have equal masses, mass is still conserved. It was sort of created, but since one was a particle and one was an antiparticle, it was sort of created and destroyed at the same time. Now, that's where the particle-antiparticle was perpendicular to the gravitational field of the black hole. What if that particle-antiparticle were parallel, or I'm sorry, in the first case it's parallel to the gravitational field. So one goes down, one goes up. Now, what if that pair splits? They're just above the event horizon, or on the event horizon, and they head off away and actually escape the black hole. That's how I interpret Hawking's radiation. So once in a while, since one didn't go up and one didn't go down, they both went out. They both went away on that sort of surface, if you will, of the event horizon. And if that happens frequently enough, the black hole evaporates and dissipates. So if that happens more frequently than stuff gets sucked in, then the black hole can eventually evaporate. I think, and again, I'm just kind of going off what I've heard from, what's his name, Neil deGrasse Tyson, that the black hole itself can get so big and massive that it gets unstable, and then you get, what is it, like a pulsar or a neutron. I think they actually can explode and just with some bizarre amount of energy. So nothing lasts forever, I guess, is the point. All right, I didn't know I was going to go there in recycling tech class, but thanks for that opportunity. Does that kind of answer your question, though? Black hole. I mean, that's my interpretation of black holes. That, you know, they get recycled too somehow. I don't know. Does that jive with your thinking or thoughts of it, or?
I don't know. It's one of those things that's kind of like we know it's there, but we don't really know.
Yeah. And I don't follow it enough to.
Who you read, everybody's
Right.
got a little bit of different take.
Yeah. And I don't follow enough to.
Religion, I guess. You know, everybody's got a different perspective.
Could be, yeah. Could be. All right, so I think the message of this clip is that on a long enough time, the cosmos is just a big bathtub that will eventually go cold. Yeah, but we're living in a scene where energy is still pumped in the system, consumed, exhausted as waste, recycled as some other energy. Our bathtub isn't getting cold; it's getting moldy from overuse and neglect. Since the second law seems to be the primary universal truth, we must learn to work against the forces of entropy and chaos, even if it is we that tend to be the leading cause of turmoil. Cool. Just today, I'm going to give you an example. I was taking a shower. My house has natural gas heat, and a few weeks ago, my boiler, the pump on my boiler for my house heating system went out. It magically resurrected itself. I'm not sure. There might have been some calcification in there, and it just thermally cycled enough that it finally freed itself, and now it's working. But I just left the bathtub plunger full. Your talk of mold kind of made me think of it because I left the plunger up so that now I've got the heat. I wanted all of that heat in my house to stay in my house. I paid for it, right? I sent a check to Northwestern Energy to pay for that heat. Now, by now, that tub is probably just a degree or two hotter than the rest of the room, but I've probably gotten all my money's worth out of that dang heat that I'm going to. Here's another recycling, sustainability, engineering thought for you. I'm just going to throw it out there free for the world. We live in we live in the Five Valleys here in Missoula. We've got we're working against gravity, right? When we pump water uphill to sit in the water tank at the top so we can take our nice toasty shower. There's a little bit of gravitational in there. We then heat it. We put thermal energy into it so we can take our shower, wash our dishes, et cetera, et cetera. What I'd love to see, and I've talked about this with a few people, is let that hot shower, that water, that bathtub, the dishwasher, let that flow downhill, but then let it sit in a big tub under Higgins, for example. Just let it be a big thermal capacitor under Higgins. Street, it'll melt the ice, melt the snow, and we don't have to pump the salt on it, what have you, but just let that heat sit there and keep it. Remember the technosphere, biosphere thing we talked about it? Let it sort of sit there in the technosphere a little longer, and thus relieving our reliance on the biosphere to burn the fossil fuels to clear the streets, etc. So you got your water and your solids heading downhill before they head off to the sewage treatment plant. But also, here's the next thing I'd love to see happen. Here's what I see where we could go with our carbon capture and carbon sequestration. So you take all these manhole covers that are currently, there's no gasket, right? It's just a metal lid sitting on top of a metal cap, and there's one little hole so you can put your tool in there and yank the thing off. Seal those things. Seal the manhole covers. Seal the sewer system. Make it airtight. So all of the folks at the top of the hill are sending their hot, moldy water down so the folks at the bottom can enjoy the heat. Folks at the bottom, rather than having their exhaust stacks, steam, CO2, whatever, methane, if you've ever sat on a rooftop and smelled the gases that are coming from the stack, it's smelly. I mean, those gases are being made. I mean, there are bugs in the sewer making methane 24/7, 365. Let that gas instead flow up this capped sewer, and now you capture it. You've got your methane at the top, and you use that methane to run the pumps to get the water back uphill. So I can sort of see this district heating, district gas exchange happening right in that one sewer tube with the solids and liquids at the bottom going down and the hot air coming back up. So let's get after it. Okay. A little geothermal. Yeah, you could call it geothermal too. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Tyne and Connor. I not only found this video to be very informative, but hilarious. Yeah, I know. We laugh at the videos and the angels and the, I think there was some, what?
Angels and the devils.
The devils and there's like Pegasus is flying around there, I think, too.
Yeah, cruising around the spaceship with their couple of dogs and the polar bear and
The gray alien.
all the great.
Gray alien, yeah, polar bears. Those guys put some work into it. I was impressed. Okay, so this is Tynan chiming in. If we think of the two laws of thermodynamics in regards to recycling, I think, oh yeah, I like this one. He brings it back down to earth. Thanks a lot for doing this, Tynan. I think of milk jugs or sandwich baggies. And I think of them too, and I really think of them in the same way that I do that heat is sort of being on the surface of the friction. Anyway. Buy a gallon of milk, use only the container to house the milk, then discard the jug. It will either end up in a landfill, perhaps, if it's not recycled, and wait for the chemical bonds to break down, and eventually energy will be returned to the earth, right? But not all of it will be useful energy, and some of it will be lost as heat or not usable. Yep. Or the milk jug could be recycled, it would be melted back down in a liquid state, reformed in another object, like we just talked about with our glass reforming. But when we melt the plastic, we are losing energy, and we are unable to capture that energy back, and some of it will be useless to the system. Right, but you've done that work, you've melted the plastic, and now it's much handier than trying to just run around with a cup of milk in your hands. But if we were able to use the milk jug for other purposes, like a plant container, water capture, storage, perfect. That's what I've got Myra doing with the wine bottles. I hope she's making some progress on that. Or a transporter holder of useful items, then we are using the energy in the most effective manner while it is still usable. Yeah, and that's what I like. You're using the jug as an artifact rather than as a material. Perfect. Okay. If we continue to use a single product for a single purpose, We are eventually going to run out of useful material and energy and chemical bonds reaction in our life system. Like packaging 2 Pop-Tarts in an aluminum and plastic casing just for the Pop-Tart, capital Pop-Tart, they're gonna come after us here, to be transported and consumed, and the wrapper to be discarded without any thought to it. It took a lot of useful resources and energy to make the wrapper, but its sole purpose wasn't very fulfilling and didn't last very long. We need to keep utilizing materials for as long as possible to get the most out of them, otherwise we're going to use up what we have with no current place to go get more. That's right. Eat your apple. The wrapper's edible. That's right.
Still need the seeds because you get too much arsenic.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you liked the video. I found it fascinating, and the graphics were, I thought, very well done. And so thanks to everybody who chimed in on that one. Okay, so I'll take a break here, and what I want to do is get into the project updates. It's that time of year when I think everyone wants to know how, have I done enough? Do I still need to keep working? What's the report going to look like? So I'll take a break and then let you know what I think a nice report will look like, so we can have a upbeat end of the semester. Good timing.